Right everyone, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the day-to-day Celtic stuff today, and we're going to do another one of these youth profile pieces into one of the potential Celtic stars of the future. Now this has acted as a bit of a bad thing for the players we have focused in on in the past. Karamoko Dembele is pretty far out of the picture now and looks certain to leave the club. Cameron Harper, I think, is already agreed a departure from the club. Those are the two players we've focused in on so far, so let's hope today's one fares a little bit better. Leo Hjelde has been spoken about a lot in the press over the last few days or so. He is a Celtic youngster, still a teenager, 17 years old, who's currently out on loan at Ross County. And it's the comments made by the county manager and friend of 67 Hill John Hughes about Hjelde that have got people talking. Hughes was massively positive about Hjelde and the future of Hjelde. Let's have a wee look at what Hughes had to say. We're getting this courtesy of Not the Old Firm.
And Leo's going to be the next Van Dijk. Trust me on that. Trust me on that. He's got a lot to learn for a young kid. Especially being Scottish, Norwegian young kid to come on loan in this period under COVID and come up and produce what he's produced. Absolutely fantastic. He's still got a long way to go, a lot of learning. Take my hat off to him. He's acquitted himself very, very well. And I think he's got a massive future. I would love to see him making his debut for the first team and becoming a regular for Glasgow Celtic. Nothing more I would love to be going along to Parkhead and seeing Leo running out there.
So other than just being a pretty great all-round guy, John Hughes does actually have a bit of a reputation for getting things right and making big predictions. You may recall way back in either 2014 or 2015, he predicted that Ryan Christie, then at Inverness Caledonian Thistle, would soon be a Scotland international. Go forward a few years, and yes, a lot of Celtic fans aren't the biggest fans of Christie, but you can't deny that he hasn't had a pretty good few years and is now a regular for Scotland and will surely be at Euro 2020. So John Hughes knows when he sees a good player, he knows how to identify a good player, and he knows what will make a good player in the future, and he clearly seems to think that Hjelde is one of those players. So Leo Hjelde is a 17-year-old. He's Norwegian and he's been capped at under 16 and currently under 17 level for his country. It is a matter of time before he makes a step up to even higher international youth level. Celtic signed him in the summer of 2019, so he's been in Scotland for the best part of 2 years. We picked him up from Rosenborg's youth academy, where he'd spent a considerable amount of time, but he never played for the Rosenborg full team, which I suppose isn't really surprising given that he was, I think, 15 or 16 when we signed him. Now, it is worth saying that Celtic did reportedly beat off a fair bit of competition to sign Hjelde. He was much sought after by a number of teams and still is to this very day. His father was a professional footballer. I don't suppose you will have heard of him. He was last seen playing for Mansfield in 2007, which kind of seems a bit strange that he's already got a kid playing professional football in Scotland's top tier and he only retired 14 years ago. Kind of makes me feel a bit old. God knows how it makes you feel. His name was John Olav Hjelde. He also played for a few other teams in England. I think he played for Rosenborg as well. And he's actually spoken to The Athletic in the last week or so. And he said a number of things. But the most interesting thing that he said, as far as I'm concerned, was that Leo Hjelde, his son's move to Celtic, the primary reason for that was that Celtic could offer a pathway to the first team. So Hjelde is primarily a centre-back, although he can also play left-back and has even played left-wing-back on occasion for Ross County. He scored a notable goal for them in a game against Kilmarnock last month when he broke clear and slotted home with his left foot. His best attribute is probably his technical ability, his passing, his crossing, which is strange for a centre-back / left-back, but it's not without reason. The reason is that growing up, he was primarily a midfielder and also an attacker. So he has those abilities and he's kept them even though he's moved back in the pitch. At this point, given his nationality and the thing I just said about him being a midfielder who's been moved back as he got older, it's pretty impossible to deny the comparison between him and Kristoffer Ajer. And the pair, while they may not be massively close at Celtic, Ajer did actually have a say in getting Hjelde to the club. The story in The Athletic went that when Hjelde came for a look around Celtic's training ground, Lennoxtown, it was Ajer who was actually the tour guide. And Hjelde took to Ajer quite well and also saw the shining example that was in front of him, a player coming from Norway to succeed at Celtic. So there are definite comparisons between Hjelde and Ajer, probably more comparisons between those two than there is between Hjelde and Virgil van Dijk, if we're honest. But there's also things that are very different about how Ajer and Hjelde came to Scotland. For a start, Ajer was a couple of years older than Hjelde and had already got first team experience in the Norwegian top flight with Start. Hjelde, as I previously said, has had no first team experience apart from this current spell at Ross County. Ajer had even captained his Norwegian side, 16 years old. I think he's the youngest ever captain in the Norwegian top flight. So there's clearly a disparity between what both players had achieved when they came to Celtic and also the fact that Hjelde was a couple of years younger. So how has he got on in his loan spell at Ross County so far? I'm not a Ross County fan. I've not seen a lot of them apart from that time they beat Celtic, which Hjelde was obviously not playing in, and ironically is the only clean sheet they've kept since he's been at the club. I don't know what that says about him. But looking at the impact he's made at a struggling Premiership team for a 17-year-old, it looks quite impressive. That Celtic game he missed is one of only 2 games that he hasn't taken part in since signing for Ross County. He's played every minute of 9 of the 11 games he could have, so he's been a constant presence pretty much for Ross County. He scored that goal that I spoke about against Kilmarnock last month, but it hasn't all been positive for him. He has had a few more difficult moments, most notably in the recent Highland Derby Scottish Cup tie. But for a 17-year-old, as far as Celtic are concerned, you want him to go out, make mistakes and see how he bounces back from them while playing in a first-team environment. So the key question that you're probably wanting answered here is, how far is he away from the Celtic first team? The honest answer is no one ever knows these kind of things. My opinion is that he is at least a year away from being a player who can make an impact in the Celtic first team. The reason I say that is Hjelde is currently 17. Kristoffer Ajer was 18 when he went on a 6-month loan spell to Kilmarnock. A lot of people may think there's real similarities again between Ajer's 6-month loan spell from January 2017 to Hjelde's current 6-month loan spell from January 2021. Both have played similar minutes for teams that were struggling at the bottom of the league, but just from memory, I think Ajer had a much bigger impact at Kilmarnock than Hjelde's had at Ross County. I seem to remember Ajer being a standout pretty much every game for Kilmarnock and far too good for a team like that, their best player by a mile. I don't think you could say the same about Hjelde right now. What I'm saying is that he's not ready for the Celtic first team next season, even though John Hughes reckons he should be in or about the Celtic first team squad. Ideally, I think Hjelde would have another year at least next season at another Scottish team, possibly even a higher standard of team than Ross County, maybe a team that plays a bit more football than Ross County. I know John Hughes likes to get the ball down and play, but just being a smaller team in the league, it's quite difficult for them to do that. Ideally, maybe he would sign for an Aberdeen, a Hibs, a Hearts, who are going to be back in the league next year, and have some sort of a positive spell at them. Dundee United is another option I can think of. You look how long it took Ryan Christie to get his real chance in the Celtic first team. I think he spent the best part of 3 years on loan at different clubs. He had that first spell at Inverness on loan after they signed him from the Highland side, and then I think he had a couple of years at Aberdeen when Brendan Rodgers first came in. Stephen Welsh, another obvious player to compare Hjelde to. Welsh was 20 before he got his real Celtic opportunity. A reminder that Hjelde is only 17. So by that logic, he could have 2 or even 3 years to wait for his big Celtic opportunity. But he does have one thing going for him. This summer, Celtic will have a real dearth of centre-back talents. Julian's still going to be injured. Ajer could leave the club. Shane Duffy is certain to leave the club in the summer. So if Hjelde wants to really make an impact at Celtic, he could do it this summer. He probably will get an opportunity in a pre-season game or two. He'll certainly get an opportunity to train with the Celtic first team squad and make a good impression under a new manager. So it's not inconceivable that he has a really, really good pre-season, plays a couple of pre-season games, makes a good impact and is kept around at the club next season. But I just think he needs at least another year of playing with professional players. As much as he's been a regular for Ross County, this is the only first team football, professional football he's had in his career so far. So I don't think we should be too quick to rush him into the Celtic first team if we can avoid it.